Good afternoon. Today is April 20th, 2023. It is shortly after 1 p.m. This is the matter of an appeal of two approvals by the planning department or planning director of construction of new single-family residences within the floodplain of the Sandy River. These are files Z0571-22-F and Z0572-22-F. The applicant and owner of the property is, or applicant is Michael Gregory. My name is Carl Cox. I'm a private attorney appointed by the Clackamas County Board of Commissioners as hearings officer with authority to conduct this hearing and make a determination in this matter. I will state several important things for the record before I begin. First, this is a quasi-judicial land use hearing, which means two important things for those participating in this hearing. First, all of the criteria that can be used in reaching a decision have been identified in the staff report. Testimony, arguments, and evidence must be directed towards the criteria identified in the staff report or other relevant criteria found in the comprehensive plan or other land use regulation that the person believes applies to the decision. Accordingly, please direct your testimony to a relevant approval criterion. Second, failure to raise an issue accompanied by statements or evidence sufficient to afford the decision maker and the parties an opportunity to respond to the issue may preclude appeal to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals on that issue. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Once final, this decision may be appealed to the Oregon Land Use Board of Appeals. I will state for the record, I've not received any ex parte contact in this matter, meaning no one contacted me outside of these proceedings to try to persuade me concerning a fact or issue present in this matter. I've considered issues of bias and conflict of interest and have determined that I do not have any bias or conflict of interest in this matter. The county is making a record, and that record will be available through the county. Prior to ending the hearing and closing the record, I will make an opportunity available for any party or member of the audience to request an additional period to submit evidence, arguments, or testimony to the record. At this time, I'm going to ask that the county provide an explanation concerning participation in this hearing via the Zoom platform.
Thank you, Mr. Hearings Officer. My name is Steve Henchka. I'm with the Planning and Zoning Division, and I'll read the associated document for that, which basically states that this public hearing will be conducted virtually using the Zoom platform. Panelists for today's hearing, which include the hearings officer, county staff, and the applicant, have both audio and video capability. Audience members who have joined the meeting will have their mics muted unless they wish to testify, in which case they will be called upon to do so by the county staff moderator. Audience members' video will not be turned on at any time. Today's hearing is being recorded as required by law. The county will make every effort to post the recording on the county website later today. There is a designated time during the hearing when it will be open for testimony. The hearings officer will make it clear when this is. If you want to provide testimony, you will utilize the raised hand feature. For attendees on a PC and iPad, you have a raise hand button on the Zoom bar, on the top or the bottom, depending on the device. When the moderator switches you over to provide testimony, your screen will look different for a little while. Primarily, you will see all participants' cameras, not just the one who is speaking. Staff will call upon you when it is time for you to provide testimony. Be sure to provide your name and mailing address when you begin. Once you have provided your testimony, your mic will be muted and your screen will be returned to normal. If the record is left open at the end of this hearing and you wish to submit additional written testimony, email written testimony to stevehan@clackamas.us or mail it to the Clackamas County Planning and Zoning Division at 150 Beaver Creek Road, Oregon City, Oregon 97045. The staff contact email address is also available on the webpage where you found the Zoom link for today's hearing. Testimony must be received by 4 p.m. on the day the record closes. People who testify and provide their mailing address will receive a copy of the hearings officer's written decision. If you do not wish to testify but would like to receive the decision, you must provide your email or standard mailing address, either by email to the staff contact for the application or by entering it in the Zoom chat function during the hearing. And that concludes.
Thank you. The order of proceedings will be that I will ask that the county begin the hearing by presenting the county's staff presentation. Then I will provide an opportunity for the appellant to present its arguments, and including presenting testimony, referring to some of the exhibits or materials that were provided in advance of the hearing, and make their arguments. Then I will provide the owner an opportunity as well to present arguments in support of their position. Please proceed, Mr. Hanchka.
Thank you. Okay. This is an appeal of file numbers Z0571-22-F and Z0572-22-F, which are floodplain development permits for 2 new homes in the floodplain of the Sandy River. This is your basic location map. You can see there's basically a little bit west of the Sandy River, and I'm actually gonna excuse me, Mr. Hearings Officer, can you still see the presentation?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Okay. So anyway, again, this is a location map. It's west of the Sandy River and east of East Wrightwood Loop Road, near its intersection with East Miller Road. This is just basically the tax assessor's map of the subject location. This is the final record of survey for property line adjustment that was done to reconfigure the lots that are ultimately proposed, or the site, I say, as a whole, which is proposed for 6 single-family residences. So background, the entire site is in the floodplain of the Sandy River. There are several exhibits that illustrate that. There's a marshy wetland depression area that traverses the middle of the site. And as previously noted, the site has been reconfigured through a property line adjustment to create 6 potentially buildable lots in the Sandy River floodplain. As previously noted at a prior hearing, actually, this is not a subdivision, but these are 6 individual lots of record, each of which is and has been potentially buildable. The 4 northerly lots have been previously approved for development of a single family residence under these listed file numbers. The original applications for the 2 subject lots, which are essentially the 2 southerly lots on the site, had expired. And so what's being reviewed now are the current applications now for those 2 southerly lots. As previously noted, the marshy wetland is regulated by the Oregon Department of State Lands. Staff understands that a DSL enforcement file has been incurred, and that also there is a joint permit application in process with the Department of State Lands. As noted in prior hearings, or at least a prior hearing, and as an exhibit in a prior hearing, the Corps of Engineers has stated that it won't be pursuing any enforcement action relative to the wetland. So Department of Environment, well, several state agencies and federal agency being FEMA have been notified as listed here, and thus far I've only received comments from DSL. a number of comments from the CPO and adjacent property owners have been received in opposition to the project, which are outlined in several of the exhibits, or actually many of the exhibits. Access is by way of a primitive gravel road from East Brightwood Loop Road. It winds its way down into the site, and the applicant has obtained approval from the county for access to the site with conditions for the design and improvements by the county engineering division under this file number here. Fire department approval for access has been obtained from Woodland Fire District, as outlined in that exhibit. Access rights to the easement by the applicant have been verified by the county, and access to the two southerly lots for which additional development engineering approval would be required and that are subject to these applications would be from the same road. As outlined in the exhibit 26, the applicant has hired AKS engineering to do a drainage analysis that does illustrate that the wetland is not hydrologically connected to the Sandy River. The analysis as listed here also includes conditions for conveyance and outlines the methodology of the hydraulic analysis that was used to design to design the culvert that will be crossed to access the subject lots that will cross the marshy wetland. Build a grading permit, it's been determined is not required. Septic permits are, of course, required before any home construction can begin. This is just a map, the official flood insurance rate map from FEMA, showing the project location and how it is indeed in the floodplain of the Sandy River. This is basically what's known as the base flood elevation analysis. It's just a calculation by staff using the flood insurance study to verify that the elevation of the 100-year flood at each lot has been accurately calculated, and that in turn the dwellings will be elevated at least 2 feet above the calculated base flood elevations.
Can I verify something with you, Mr. Hanchka?
Certainly.
If you go just on this, I noted that there were some confusion about which lot was which tax lot, and is that straightened out for this?
I think I do believe that we got that straightened out, yes, and that the building, yeah. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. This is just kind of a detail map. The blue is what's technically known as the floodway fringe, which is the area of the floodplain that's potentially buildable for single-family residents, and the light green is the regulatory floodway where single-family residential development is not permitted. No homes are actually being proposed within the regulatory floodway. This is essentially just an overall site plan as provided by the applicant. This is the proposed site plan for the most southerly lot under file Z0571-22. And then this is the site plan for the second lot just to the north, Z0572-22-F. And again, you can see the crossing here, and then the access to the lots. And then the same thing here, the crossing and then access to the lot.
Okay. On some of these site plans, sir, I saw designations for septic drain area and a replacement septic area, but those are not approved. Those are site plans, correct?
That's simply on the site plan. Exactly.
Okay.
Yep.
So those are pending approval by county septic.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
And whether those, that'll be entirely up to septic and on-site wastewater. This is basically just a listing. I won't go through every single one of these, but it's basically a listing of the key performance standards for construction of a dwelling within the floodplain. And then the remainder of these slides have actually been presented before. They're basically just simply details of single-family residential construction in the floodplain. This first slide outlines flood vents and elevation of the first habitable floor. Again, a depiction of flood vents and elevation. This shows the elevation of utilities and mechanical, as called out here in that cloud area. Again, more documentation of flood vents. The applicant is using smart vents, which are basically kind of a more, it's actually a better solution for flood venting than a standard foundation vent, and it vents more area than a standard in terms of venting more enclosed area / crawl space than a standard foundation vent. Again, illustration of the elevation of the first habitable floor and flood resistant materials below. More plans of essentially the same thing. This is actually detail of the stem walls, illustrating again the elevation of the first habitable floor. Foundation plan calling out the flood vents, and that is the extent of that the staff presentation.
Well, let me
With the
just ask
project.
a question about the documents that you reviewed, the specific engineering. Were you provided engineering and architecture plans stamped by a professional engineer to review?
Yeah, those are within, those are in conjunction with the actual building permits that have
Okay.
been, that are either have been approved or are in the review process. So yes.
Yes, okay. Plans stamped. And with that stamp, what they are stating is that the plans meet floodplain development standards. The plans meet it.
Yeah, but the home construction meets the performance standards for floodplain development of single family residences in the floodplain.
Thank you. Okay.
I would add, we do have Johnny Gish here on hand if there happen to be any questions regarding the access itself, or driveway construction, if necessary.
Right. Thank you, sir. I'll wait and see if if an opportunity to answer questions seems to present itself. Let's look to the and I see your hand up, Mr. Gregory, but I want to provide you an opportunity after the appellant has been provided an opportunity to state the reasons that that their appeal should be upheld and these applications denied. So let's start with the appellants. I will call on people if that makes sense. I received an email suggesting that Nora Gamby should be called upon first as the chair of the Hoodland CPO. Ms. Gamby, are you available and present for this? I can't hear anyone. Is it Bound? Is your audio working? Let's give the appellants a moment. It can be a little confusing to sort out how to make the audio work.
Ryan?
Yeah, can you hear us now?
Yes.
Okay, we have audio now. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
So what I'm going to ask is that we turn off Marty Bound's audio because you seem to be in the same room.
It is off. The only audio that's on right now is Ryan Tursek, and we'd like to leave it that way. My audio is off.
Okay,
Okay. Can you hear me? This is Nora Gamby.
thank you. Nice. Good afternoon, Ms. Gamby. So let's start with Nora Gamby.
I'm Nora Gamby. I'm chair of the Woodland CPO. The board members and community are working together to speak with you today. If the hearing officers should decide to reject these appeals, we must insist that the county address and report their own monitoring of the criteria listed in their land use permitting decisions. You have before you our presentation and exhibits. My board members will will reference these exhibits throughout their testimony slots.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yes, and you're talking about exhibit, what I have is exhibit 30, the CPO appeal package.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, I want to make sure that I'm looking at exactly what you're asking me to see.
They're gonna ask.
Is David Lysko with you, or do we need to move him over?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Okay,
So please state your name and address.
David Lithgow, P.O. Box 1, Welch's, Oregon, 97067.
Thank you, sir. Please.
I'm addressing the floodplain management district, and I'll refer to the maps that we've previously sent you.
Mhm.
Those are on pages 5 to 9 in our package.
Okay, one moment. Okay, I have that page 5 does not have a map. The maps begin on what I have as page 7 of 47.
Well, this would be map, I'll refer first to map A. Might be on your page 7 then.
Yes, it has handwritten map A, and I see where you've handwritten page 5. I'm referring to the exhibit page numbers.
Okay, that map is an aerial of the subject property supplied by the state inspector at one time. It shows the potential violations as yellow markings on that map. And I've added the historic flood channel in blue. The wetland channel's in green and past flood damage is in red. Now map B, probably your next page, also shows these features. I'm not a cartographer, and the locations noted are approximate based on my personal inspection of the properties. I've lived in the area all my life and witnessed the 64, 06, 96, and 2011 flood events. Map C, the next page, is a Clackamas County map showing potential channel migration, the historic migration zone, and the FEMA 100-year flood zone. Note that the development is in all 3 of those zones. Map D, on the next page, is a map of the development provided to the county by the developer. I've noted the approximate location of the wetlands, historic flood channel, and septic system approved areas. On this,
Just a moment, hang on. I have map A Then I have the historic floodplain map B, map C, and it skips to map. Oh, map D is just out of order. Okay, I see it.
Okay, so I continue?
Yes, please.
Okay, the map D then, was provided to the county by the developer. And I've noted the approximate location of the wetlands, historic flood channel, and septic system approved areas. Note on this map, the approximate flood hazard zone is identified. Most flood information for this map is taken from FEMA maps. The FEMA maps are created by the federal agency without a physical inspection of the property. I contend a physical inspection would yield different definitions of the flood zones. In fact, I believe the proposed dwellings would be inside the flood hazard zone. The developer has already roughed in the footprint for these dwellings very close to the wetland shown. He has pushed the limits of arbitrary flood boundaries. Now to map
I
E.
believe you're correct, sir. I believe that this entire section that we're looking at on flat, substantially all from where you've marked it in purple to the right on the map is within the floodplain itself.
Yes.
Yes.
Now to map E.
And map E is above map D in my exhibit. But yes, I'm looking at it.
Okay, it's an area of the property. Careful examination shows the wetlands as a dark area highlighted by green markings. Today, this area would show most of the trees removed and the property graded for roads and home sites. Unfortunately, we did not have access to a drone, or we would have provided that. In conclusion, the property is known to have a very high water table. There are artesian wells in the area where the water flows with force from the ground. With up to 12 septic systems allowed in the flood areas, one is in the extreme hazard zone, there is an extreme likelihood of groundwater contamination, as 6 septic systems will be active. Even the best septic system leaches contaminated water. I can imagine quite a stink on a hot spring day. The volatility of the Sandy River is well known. Homes were lost in prior flood events, as shown on map B. The subject property is just after a dramatic bend in the river. All rivers seek an easy, straight path. The Sandy River will someday take this path again and reach the historic river channel, shown in blue on the maps, and inundate this development. FEMA states there's a 25% chance of a major flood event in the next 30 years. We plan ahead for an earthquake catastrophe. We should plan ahead for a flood catastrophe. Zoning ordinance for the county, 703.02, pertaining to flood hazard development, states the purpose of the floodplain management district is to promote the public health, safety, and general welfare, protect human life and health, minimize public and private flood losses in flood hazard areas, restrict or prohibit uses that are dangerous to health, safety, or property during floods, prohibit uses that cause increases in erosion, flood heights, or velocities, protect individuals from buying lands that are not suitable because of flood hazard, minimize the need for rescue and relief efforts undertaken at the expense of the general public. We do not believe these goals can be met by this development, and therefore development in this flood-prone area should not be allowed. Thank you, Mr. Cox.
And thank you, sir. And Ryan Tursek.
Hi, I'm Ryan Tersick. I'm the Communications Director for the Hoodland CPO. Our concern here today is
Please state your address.
I'm sorry. My address is 25870 East Bright Avenue. That's in Welch's, zip code is 97067.
Yes, sir.
I'm the Communications Director for the Hoodland CPO. Our concern here today is the monitoring of the conditions of approval the county has specified and the status of those conditions. How the county will communicate on the ongoing status to the Hoodland CPO and the Hoodland community we both serve. We suggest the following. Include monthly in-person meetings between the planning department and the CPO members. CPO obtaining updated information on communications.
Please slow down. I'm doing my best to take notes, but I only can write so fast. So you're suggesting monthly in-person meetings. Actually, did you include this in your materials? I think I saw something about that.
Yeah, it's listed as page 10, example 3.
Page 10. Okay, just a moment. I'm just going to say refer to exhibit. It's exhibit 30, and actually on my exhibit, it is page 12.
Okay.
Please proceed.
Okay. So along with this example here, I'm going to start back over here, including monthly in-person meetings between the planning department and the CPO board members. The CPO obtaining updated information on communications between the county, the Corps of Engineers, the Oregon Department of State Lands, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency to ensure all county, state, federal regulations, state and federal regulations are permitted and completed as per the approvals as they now stand. We want the opportunity for the CPO to present to the county photos and other evidence regarding the ongoing work at this location. And that any county site visit be documented and reported to the CPO. We were unaware of a site visit by you guys for a long time, until fairly recently. And also that the county be receptive to our involvement in the process and respond to the bullet points in our submitted comments in Exhibit 1. We really ask you to consider our communications plan. Thank you.
Just a moment, Mr. Tursek. I have a question for you. I noted in the, it must be the cover sheet or the appeals cover sheet that was submitted by the Hoodland CPO that there was a reference that the CPO did not receive notice of this land use application. Can you speak to that?
571.
That was 571. We did not receive it until after it was approved.
Okay, so what's your normal process for receiving the notice?
We get them via email from you guys, and then we typically discuss it in one of our meetings, and then we post it to our membership.
Okay, so you're saying you only got the one for Z0572?
Correct.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
I'm calling on Marty Bound.
Thank you. I'm Marty Bound. I'm the Secretary Treasurer for the CPO out here.
Thank you.
My address is PO Box 685, Welch's 97067. I'm asking you to please reference our CPO comments, which is shown to you as Exhibit 1, probably starting on page 3 if we're off by 2 page numbers there.
Just a moment.
Thank you.
My exhibit 1 is the staff, the planning director decision.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how the county put
So
their docs together.
I have your packet labeled as exhibit 30.
Right.
If you're asking me to look up to, I see that exhibit 30, page 3 of 47, it has a handwritten note that says exhibit 1 on it.
Yes, Exhibit 1. I'll be referring to Exhibit 1. I'll be referring to bullet points 1, 2, and 3. So bullet 1
I
and
have them up.
on the first page and then we move on from there.
Sure.
I ask that you read all of the comments in their entirety, of course. I'm just going over some highlights. Point 1, has the county fully considered the requirements of Z0571-22-F for protecting floodplains? The danger to life and property due to increased flood heights or velocities caused by encroachments. The danger that materials may be swept onto other lands or downstream to the injury of others. The proposed water supply and sanitation systems and the ability of those systems to prevent disease contamination and unsanitary conditions. Under that, ground and surface waters will be contaminated in a flood event here. This will expose existing wells that currently provide drinking water for residents in the area, exposing that to contamination. The applicant's own site map filed with the county shows the drain fields for the septic systems are in or immediately next to wetland and a seasonal stream that runs off the bank. Please look at Exhibit 7, our Exhibit 7, which should start on your page, probably 28 for that. The safety, this is a big issue for me personally, the safety of access to the property in times of flood for ordinary and emergency vehicles. The Hoodland Fire Department cannot respond to fire or other emergencies because of limited access for equipment over the easement road. The department has answered, the fire department has answered with requirements for the buildings themselves. But what of an outdoor blaze that would occur due to carelessness, wind, or unpermitted outdoor burning? And please check the fire department's comments on our exhibit number 8. Point 2, bullet point 2, which is on the next page. Neither the county nor the developer has met requirements of ZDO 137, which states no person shall engage in, I think I'm in the right spot here, or cause development to occur without first obtaining the necessary land use approvals required by and according to procedures in Section 1307. There is no application for a U.S. Army Corps of Engineers permit, which the Corps would require, since this is the location of the waters of the United States, which they govern. Notice is given in a letter to the permittee in June of 2022. That is exhibit number 6. That letter does say that if anything else were to be done by the applicant, that the applicant needs to approach the Corps and see about getting a permit. I don't know that that's been done, but I don't know everything. There's been no follow through on the requirement from the Oregon Department of State Lands to return the site to its original condition before any permits can be allowed. If you could simply refer to our exhibit number 5 for more information on that. The lack of compliance with federal and state permitting continues in violation of state and federal statutes. And then finally to point 3, which is on the next page. The county has required many conditions and made many assumptions about future compliance that are unrealistic. There is no way for the CPO or its members to track or monitor whether any or all of these conditions can or will be met without direct communication with the county. And we refer back on that to our Exhibit 3, which is our recommended communication plan. Summary, the county has not adequately met its requirements. The decision is clear that these permits do not authorize on-site grading, clearing, excavation, or other construction work. The county assumes the developer will comply. Exhibit 9, our Exhibit 9, shows that not to be the case. Please reference that Exhibit 9. Those are pictures that were taken just this past Sunday at the site. I think we have probably 13 photos in there. And then in conclusion, the CPO here has over 300 members who follow land use applications. At the January 11th, 23 CPO community meeting, 113 attendees said unanimously they oppose this development, which then led the CPO to appeal the original 4 land use applications that were approved on 4 adjacent lots owned by Gregory Development. Please see Exhibit 10, which references our meeting minutes from that day. Of course, we lost on that appeal, Mr. Cox, as you're well aware. The CPO and members request a communication plan be placed into effect with the first meeting occurring within 2 weeks of the final decision to these appeals. We appreciate your consideration, the consideration of the county in helping us prepare this presentation, and we thank you very much.
And thank you for your participation as well. I've already heard from Ryan Tursick and the other 3 members of the Hoodlum CPO. Are there other members of the CPO present that did not have that opportunity yet?
No.
Well, Pat's a member of the CPO. not the
Are you
board.
talking about the board or the membership in
Just the
general?
board, just the board.
Members of the board are here today.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to provide Mr. Gregory as the applicant an opportunity to present information, testimony, evidence that the applicant wants me to consider in support of his applications.
Okay, here I am. There is one inaccuracy in Steve's slide deck. There is not a current permit application to DSL or the Corps of Engineers. I guess, Steve, for the purpose of this application, you're not looking at that whole road packet from AKS. Is that accurate?
No, I actually have the entire road packet from AKS, and it's in, and including the culvert design.
I saw it.
It's in Exhibit 26, 27 pages. It includes includes the drainage analysis, and the culvert design, the hydraulic calculations, like the documentation of using the King County method, et cetera, and conveying the 25-year storm.
Gotcha. Yeah, so as part of that whole engineering process, it was determined, the engineers determined that the total cut and fill for that process doesn't exceed the 50 yards limit per year that you're allowed to cut and fill in a wetland. So there was no permit needed for that. So that was the only real thing that I saw out of the slide deck that was inaccurate. As far as the, sorry, I'm getting a call here. As far as the septic systems go for those 2 lots, that was a preliminary site map that has no bearing on what will be approved. The setback from the wetland area is 50 feet from any surface waters. So once I'm able to apply for a septic permit, there will be an updated map submitted with that that shows all the appropriate setbacks. Other than that, I don't really have anything to say. Nobody's really brought up any challenge to the engineering design of the actual documents presented. So I don't know. I don't really have anything else to add.
Okay. Thank you. I do have a question for Mr. Henschke, and perhaps you're not the right person to direct it to, and I don't want to put you on the spot about that, but the issue of notice, they're saying that they only got the notice about the one application. that they received them via email, and is there a process for tracking down whether?
I actually have them both. Both emails. I can probably share the screen. But it does show that the Hoodland CPO was emailed both 572-22 and 571. So that's the best documentation that I can provide. And again, if you'd like, I can put them up on the screen. So that's 572. The Hoodland CPO is listed here.
Okay,
And I have 571 also if you'd like to see it.
sure.
Okay.
Just take a peek.
Let's see. Okay, so 571, the Hoodland CPO is listed here.
Yep. Okay.
So that's the
Well,
best.
thank you,
best I
sir.
can do. Yeah.
Didn't mean to put you on the spot,
Yeah.
but I thought you might be the right person to ask about it. Okay, you were saying something and I interrupted.
What I was saying something? I'm sorry.
All right,
Were you
maybe
addressing
not.
me? No, I
Okay.
think unless there's anything else that anything else I can, I do believe that I concluded in terms of that question, relative to documentation of notice, the CPO.
Okay,
So, yeah.
thank you. Are there members of the general public that would like to provide a comment today? Use the raise hand feature. And Mr. Gregory, I see your hand is still up, but I'm not sure what. Okay,
I have Patricia Erdenberger.
okay, general public.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, good afternoon, Ms. It's Erdenberger, and please
Erdenberger.
state your name and address.
Pat Erdenberger, Post Office Box 909, Welches, Oregon 97067.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Cox. Thank you all for all the efforts you've made on this. I was formerly on the board of the CPO, and now I'm simply a member of the Hoodland CPO. My thoughts were submitted previously to the county in an email with attachments, which I'm sure Mr. Hanska forwarded to you.
Yes,
We don't need to go through all those. I don't really want to extend this. The members of the board have been quite clear regarding communications, flood safety, and those other issues that they brought up under 703. What I would like to speak to is the fact that members of the community have been aware of the ongoing and at times unpermitted work that was taking place on the site beginning in September of 2001, not 2002, but 2001. There was 5 months of work done there. At the end of the 5 months, Mr. de Blasi with the state of Oregon Department of State Lands, went to the site, viewed it, and made a recommendation to the Corps that they might want to look at this or take an enforcement action from what he observed. The Corps wrote back, and I'll have to disagree with Mr. Hanska here on the reading of the Corps' letter. I used to work for the National Marine Fisheries Service. I'm used to how the Corps will very politely come out with a first shot at something. They don't want to bring big hammers and enforcement down. They advise. And the Corps, in that letter of June 27th of 2022, said that the work in progress has likely impacted areas meeting the definition of waters of the United States. And further, the regulatory branch chief continued, "You are hereby advised further work within waters of the United States may require in parens, a federal permit authorization." It's as clear as the Corps would ever be on a first letter out. They're not foolish. So I'd just like to disagree with the interpretation of their call. They base this letter on what they heard from Mr. de Blasi at the Oregon Department of State Lands. He's their hydrology expert, or one of them probably. And to our knowledge, and I've checked with the Corps, no permit application has been made. So this ongoing work at the site may actually be in a zone where an enforcement action might take place in the federal venue. So we're very concerned about that. But I am just one of 300 members of the Woodland CPO. And I'll just summarize very quickly that the work at the site has not stopped since September 2021, no matter the government input, whether the county, state, didn't matter. This pattern of behavior is very worrisome to the other members of the CPO, that we need to bring monitoring and enforcement a little closer to the activities there. We're concerned that the criteria relied upon by the county has been ignored, and that work will continue unabated through a clear pattern of disregard of the warnings from the county. If I could. There we go. We're also concerned about the inaction to date by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and hence when I wrote my email, I notified the Corps, the state, and FEMA and EPA and everyone else of the local thoughts on this. And we're concerned about the lack of monitoring, primarily on a project that may be dangerous to the health and safety of the community. I was down there a week ago, and less than a week ago. And yes, it's been raining a lot. So you would expect my driveway has lots of water in it. But you can see that logs have been removed. And I was there with some of the neighbors. The road that's been built is primarily on the neighbor's property. There's a road with a foot deep of gravel.
Yep,
So
I saw some pictures that were submitted. Perhaps you are
Right.
referring to those.
we had stills and we had a little video of it.
And I was able to view the video.
Okay, good. Those are just a collection of clips of what I took. But it's, I think, very important. If the Corps of Engineers comes in and the state of Oregon and they say, oh no, this is just fine, then that's going to be that. I'm less concerned at that point. But what I do know is what waters of the United States means to salmon and other animals in habitat along a river. So that's my pitch from the community, not a technical viewpoint. I rely on the Corps and the State Department of Lands to tell us that that's okay to do that there. And that's all, Mr. Cox. Thank you so much to all of you, and you, Steve, and you, Darcy, for all your help. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have another member of the general public that has not had an opportunity.
I have Jack McAfee.
Okay. Please state your name and address for the record. And your audio needs to be turned on.
We're new at this, so. Is it on yet?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, my name is Sylvia McAfee. Jack and I were married many years ago. We have been no longer married for another many years. I'm 85 years old. My father bought the property down the road from where all of this work is being done. And back then in, gosh, it was probably about 1948, maybe a little before that. When he bought the property, you had to have permission from Mr. Goldthorpe, who at the time owned the corner part of the lot when you're driving down that hillside. Later, he built a home up above, which is still standing, and we would get permission from him to use the property. So that was private property. I took care of it for many years after my father passed away in 1960, and my mother gave my sister and me the properties. There were two of them. One has the building on it and the other one is still empty. And then my husband at the time, Jack McAfee, bought the very end property down underneath the Purdy property up above. Things used to go on down there that weren't proper, and I would call the county, and there was one woman that would work with me and come down and look at things and make things right. The property right at the bottom of the hill always was the old Sandy River, and it used to flow gently and be wet down in that area. The road belonged to Bill Goldthorpe, and all of us helped take care of it, but he kept it ditched along the side of the road 1 foot or more so that water would run down, not over the road, but down through the ditch and out. Later, the county came through and put in some kind of process. You can still see some of the parts of it down there, to make sure the water came from the Brightwood Loop Road down and it was heading upriver. The water would come down and head upriver and flow out up there. I'm not being technical and I know that, but I've lived through the 64 flood. It took out all of our front yard.
Yep.
It's one of the things that we found when we took a walk upriver after the flood was the whole roof of a house that was sitting up there.
Yep. It was terrible.
It was what?
It was terrible, a disaster.
It was terrible, yeah. And so we're careful about that. And then recently I was sent about a year ago, I guess, a letter from the county that invited me to sign up to come to buy a piece of property. And I had no clue what that was about because there was no more property out in front of me available to do anything with.
Summarize.
Okay, so my son had signed up. He was smarter than I was. He knew somebody was coming in and trying to make something happen out there that I couldn't imagine. So he went to it. We gave him money, and a fellow by the name of Patrick purchased out in front of me. And he's not on my land, but there was probably about 15 feet from my land to the river, maybe 20. And the county sold that to him. He was told he could not build on it. I asked him what he wanted it for. He wanted to camp for his children who were special needs. And I don't know what was true and what wasn't. But anyway, it's been a mess down there. And then all of this other happening.
Yeah, I'm sorry that happened, but that sounds like a code enforcement issue that you should contact code enforcement and make a complaint about it if people are illegally camping on property in the down along the river below you.
He's not doing anything at this point, but he did go in and he messed up my wooded lot down at the end and put a road in, and he was being very forceful, and we got that stopped.
I'm sorry to hear that that happened, and it's dangerous activity, and no one should be camping down in the floodway.
But I guess my whole point is, do people even realize how the water really goes and what's going on down there? The fellow came through and he didn't pave the road. He just cut a swath down the road. And now the water, instead of having the ditch along the side of the hillside, which he wasn't aware needed to be done, comes across the road and it's already eroding an area and spilling over. So we're concerned about how long all this is going to last. When I was using the cabin with my children and I was single, I was busy every year. If we needed gravel or we needed something done, I'd contact each of these homeowners that are now apparently not owning property, and they would pay me. I'd get a bid on what it was going to cost to dig and do what we needed to have done, and we did that. So I've been there, and I've been there from the '64 flood. I see what it did. And I'm just, I can't believe all this is going on so without thought.
Well, thank you for your input into it, and you're absolutely correct that that the flooding can be pretty dramatic in the floodway and floodplain areas.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Mhm.
We have another member of the public who is also using a raised hand to provide a comment.
That is Ryan Tursek. He's the communications person.
I believe I've already provided an opportunity for Mr. Tiersick, and I'm not at this time providing an opportunity for like rebuttal. Let's move forward. Is there someone else? No. Okay. Then I'm going to ask, does any party or member of the audience want an opportunity to provide additional evidence, arguments, or testimony? Use the raise hand feature. Mr. Gregory.
Hey, I'll just say that, code enforcement, the building guy, Steve, Johnny, everybody's been out.
Well, wait a minute. I wasn't offering an opportunity to rebut. I'm talking about an opportunity to keep the record open, to submit written materials or evidence or additional testimony to that record.
Oh, sorry.
Are you looking for an opportunity to do that? So,
not to provide any additional testimony.
okay. Anyone else? All right. Then I don't see anyone that's asking for an opportunity to keep the record open. I believe I've received quite a substantial amount of relevant information in regards to the initial decisions on these two approvals by the planning director of floodplain development permits within the floodplain of the Sandy River. I have received the appeal of each of these approved permits. And I have received information and substantial evidence and testimony and documents in the form of exhibits from the county, from some that were originally submitted by the applicant, and a hearing packet and a number of quite a number of related pages of comments and information submitted by the Hoodland CPO as the appellant and also by members of the public. So I noted that there were a couple of emails that came in late. So if there's any other emails that come in late, they should be posted as exhibits and sequentially numbered as before. And I would expect that no additional information then will be submitted after 4 p.m. today. So the record will close at that time. I will issue a written decision within, I believe I have 20 days then from today to do so, and I will meet that timeline. Are there any questions about this? No? All right. Well, thank you all for your participation in this hearing, and I will promptly make a decision and issue a written decision, and you should receive that. Thank you all.